Our guest tonight is the extraordinary Brandon Boone, composer for so many things: the No Sleep podcast, Slay the Princess, and we're going to be talking about the Slay the Princess music,
Scarlet Hollow music,
Scarlet Hollow, and a whole bunch,
and all
more.
That other music that we get access to because he has this fantastic subscription service, and then he just gives it all to you, and you're like, "Oh, I have an abundance of riches." It's amazing.
It is a literal fire hose of music. It is the best thing.
Yes,
just the best.
Composer all music. So we're gonna music dork for a while, which is great. And I really wish I'd had time to prep a little bit more of an introduction to Brandon, but why don't we just bring him on? And
let's just bring him on.
And we'll just say hi. So this is the part where we put on our headphones so that Brandon knows that we're about to go live. And you're about to drop things. It's fine. We're just gonna style it out. It's all good. Hi, Brandon. How are you?
Hello.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I like your t-shirt. Very nice.
Well, thank you. I had to wear it, of course. And I know it was my job off camera to try to make you guys laugh, but I was laughing the whole time. So I failed at that miserably.
We really ought to name this interview series "We Just Laugh for an Hour" or so, or something like that. Because we really love to talk to other creative people, because we're very blessed in the fields that we work in, that we run into lots and lots and lots of creative people. And there's, the one experience that we all have, like events or conventions or, that we try to replicate with streaming is, can we just dork out for a while? And so this started out as an excuse to talk to friends. And now it's just, we know lots of friends who do and make amazing things. So it's, a great excuse for us to get to brag about how cool our friends are.
Also, that is a land speed.
You all right?
No, you're good. You're good.
That
was my fault.
Absolute land speed record. Dr. Loop, who is
okay, we've got chat. Already people are saying has studio envy, so we might need you to give an over your shoulder brief studio tour here. But okay, We've got the neutral coordinating tone sound paneling. We have the very aesthetically pleasing guitar stands. We have the ridiculously huge computer monitor and at least one keyboard.
Yeah, it's much more. It's very simple. I work in the box, as they say. I use the computer for everything. For the most part, I've got a sequential circuits Prophet 6 here. It's just hard to see on the camera, but
okay, explain that to me like I don't know what it is.
Do you know Radiohead?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They use it a lot, like the Everything in the Right Place. It's used on that quite a bit.
Okay.
So it's kind of like it's also good for like the old Carpenter sound, like the Halloween and all that kind of stuff, the 80s, the 80s sound as it is. Then really the only other hardware that I sometimes use is this is my baby right here. It's a
big board with lots of knobs and buttons.
It's huge. It's a Moog Mini Moog Voyager XL. They stopped making them. Maybe
I just heard Amber Devereaux sit straight upright somewhere, going, "What?"
It is my prized possession, mostly because I got one of the last ones made. Back when I started doing No Sleep, I was essentially working 2 jobs and I had way more money than I knew what to do with. And so I was like, I'm saving up for this thing. It was very expensive, but it was like my gift to myself. Like, I finally achieved this thing I've always wanted.
I love that.
Almost immediately stopped making them. And then this past year, sadly enough, Moog, which was a employee-owned company out of Asheville, North Carolina, was sold to a big corporation, all of its factories stuff was moved out of North Carolina and out of the country. So it's not going to be the same anymore. So that is why it's like such a price, because they're not going to make this kind of thing ever again, I don't think. And it's totally different company now. But that's a whole other tangent. But that's like my one big baby. Everything else is in the computer. It's all sample libraries and stuff like that. And
we had somebody in the chat just say less than 5 minutes before Radiohead is mentioned. I guess Erica Sanderson was right.
Oh, they're doing side bets now. I see. Okay.
Oh yeah, right.
What was the over/under on Radiohead being mentioned?
The over/under on that's the title of this stream. The over/under on Radiohead. I love it. Amazing. those that our chat knows, you do a whole lot of stuff. We first learned about your work during No Sleep, of course, and we've been to some of your No Sleep live shows, and then yes, thank you very much. And then when Scarlet Hollow came on, and we were like, "Oh, this is cool," and then we found out you were the composer for this. We were like, "Oh, our worlds are continuing to collide. Yeah. This is wonderful." So, but for the folks who, maybe Slay the Princess or Scarlet Hollow is their first introduction to you, do you want to kind of talk us through how you came into music and your career with it?
Yeah, sure. Basically this whole thing kind of started just over 10 years ago. I was a fan of the No Sleep podcast, which is a horror anthology podcast that's been running for, I think, 13 years now, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's over
anyway,
10.
It's certainly over 10, and I was a fan of it, and I was a listener, and I remember, and I've gone back and I've tried to find this, and I can't find it for the life of me, but I remember David saying something in one of the intros about how the show is becoming a lot of work for him. Mm. And I had done some stuff here in Cincinnati, very, very amateur musician. Still have no idea what I'm doing, but at the time, my wife Tisha was working for or volunteering at a local radio station for the blind and visually impaired, and so we were doing these audio plays for them, and I would do the music for them. And so I sent a small reel I made to David Cummings of the No Sleep podcast, and he kind of gave me a shot and started doing some stories here and there. It's been 10 years now since I did that. So
and you've just not stopped, and people have decided you're not allowed to stop because
maybe a little of both.
Because one of the biggest production values of No Sleep, I mean, it has superb writing, and they have a very good pool of very talented actors. Yeah. But we all work in audio and in audio production. We know what the secret sauce is, and it's that sound that you bring.
And I'm blessed to be part of a team that's our producers, Phil, Jesse, and Jeff are all amazing. David's producing again now too, and everyone. I feel like audio has been a passion for everyone on the team, and we finally kind of have a shot to show it off. And I try to be as consistent as possible musically. I think I'm approaching 10,000 pieces of music for the No Sleep podcast.
Jesus God!
I'm close to that. I'm sure I've passed the 10,000 hour mark that you're supposed to hit for your craft. But
so now you kind of feel like you know what you're doing, and you can start a new game like I did.
Sure. Right? Yeah, exactly. I've leveled up enough, and but yeah, it's just been, and from there, I mean, I've worked on a bunch of different projects, and Scarlet Hollow and Slay the Princess included are because Abby had done art for No Sleep, and there was a connection there, and so. Back in 2020, when I was starting to transition from my day job to doing music full time,
it's gonna be a whole scary other thing we can talk about.
Sure, yeah, it's still scary, and I got Tony and Abby were like, "Hey, do you want to do the music for this video game?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, this sounds awesome!" And I've been wanting to get into video games forever. I've always played video games, so I was super excited about it, and that led to Slay the Princess, and here we are.
Are you aware that we actually have exactly the same origin story?
Really?
Yes. I got into podcasting because I listened to a very early episode of Pseudopod, and Mer announced that she was stepping down as editor. And I went, I'll do it. I have a voice. And Ben just went, and 16 years later, here I am.
And you have the tattoo to show for it. Yeah, exactly.
I did not know that. I did not know that it was started by somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah Ely started Escape Pod.
2005. And then Pseudopod was 2006. Yeah, Escape Pod turns 20 next year, I think.
That's crazy.
Right?
Escape Pod might be in the top 10 first podcasts.
I was going to say.
Ever.
It's way up there. It's not the very first science fiction podcast, but that was done by Scott Sigler, who was the contemporary of Ely's at around, I think a few months earlier. But, for example, I'm pretty damn sure that Escape Pod's the oldest thing that lives in hosts now, because it's just,
that's crazy.
Die.
I didn't even I thought I was into podcasts pretty early, but 20 years.
20
like,
years,
that's
yeah.
wild.
Yeah, Murr's in the Podcasting Hall of Fame now.
She does regularly talk about shaking her podcasting old lady cane. You kids.
I know.
Yeah, to the point. Yeah, to the point where
very
like
different now than it used to be. For sure.
Well, that's exactly it. It's an industry that's matured to the point where now it has tech debt. So, which is a fun thing to have to deal with. So, okay, so the lesson I'm taking away from your origin story is these little communities that everybody has, these Discord servers where we all geek out about one thing and then we all want to do a fun thing and somebody else volunteers, they lead to these gigantic successes. And more importantly, these fantastic collaborative partnerships that get formed. Because I don't think you can separate now the impact No Sleep has from its sound because it is so iconic. And
I hope so. I hope so. That's job security.
Right? Exactly.
I mean, I would go one step further and say you can look at a lot of shows and you can look at a lot of audio producers working today who are directly influenced by you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The sound beds that Magnus used and that Alex painstakingly whittles decibel by decibel, you could draw a straight line from those to your.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's like, if that is truly the case, like that's incredibly humbling to think that I've impacted other, shows and that kind of thing. Like, I didn't know this until I met Johnny for the first time on our. We kind of had like a little Zoom party on the Slay the Princess release, and that's the first time I actually got to speak to him. And he was like, that's when he told me he was like a Patreon supporter of mine for like the last 10 years or something like that. And he's like, your music's been on all of my D&D, game, campaigns and everything. And I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's super
exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
And a lot of people ask about influences all the time. And it's one of the things that I think is really powerful and unique about audio drama, specifically kind of in the UK and somewhat in the US, is that it is such a small, tight-knit, supportive community. We're all helping people with things or being inspired by each other and contributing to each other.
It's kind of the logical extension of that old gag about crowdfunding, isn't it? Well, all Patreon is the same thing.
$10 we're all passing back and forth, right? You buy something and then you buy something. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's absolutely true. Yeah, and it's one of those things like I've kind of had to think more about that recently. I think from Slay the Princess, just because it became so successful so quickly, and amazingly so. But like I've been getting more contact from other musicians where they're like emailing me asking like for advice and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right? That's a hell of a corner when you turn it, when you because like think about the stages of this thing, right? Okay, because like contemporary experiences, you're a fan of a thing, right? Like a lot of the people in our chat that we see week after week that we love dearly are all fans of the Magnus Archives, and they're fans of him, and that's how we interacted with them. And then they come in and they listen to us talk about our influences and our exposures and are the things that we love, and then they become creators, and then they produce their own little shows, and then they've got this whole like community that they're building. But you're talking about kind of that next stage where you just don't stop and you just keep going, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're the adult in the room and people are asking you questions.
Like it's hard to think about how like I'm 36 now, and so I started doing this in my 20s. I taught myself piano at 25, and so
you give me hope. I'm trying to learn. I played percussion my whole life, but I can't play.
It is a percussive instrument,
and I can read sheet music, but I can't read for pitch. So I'm trying to. Duolingo teaches music now. That's how I'm trying to teach myself.
Really?
Yeah. They just added it. You can do music and math as well as languages now on Duolingo.
That's really
I'm literally
cool.
like, I'm going to try and teach myself pitch on the scales again because I've never learned it. So I'm sorry for the tangent, but thank you for the help. I appreciate it.
It's true. Like I have these guitars behind me, but I can barely play them. I'm a terrible guitar player. And when No Sleep stuff started, I thought I should probably get, some knowledge behind all this stuff. And so I took like 2 months of piano lessons. And then from there, I just started teaching myself because it was too expensive. And like YouTube videos, and
Right,
I ordered.
right?
Yep.
I ordered all of the, or I ordered the first two music theory workbooks from Berkeley University, and just started going through those and teaching myself music that way. But yeah, so I thought I was getting started late in my. I was 25 at the time, and now being 36, I'm looking back and I'm like, man, I was just a kid, and it is like you said, like being the adult in the room. There is like I'm getting, I'm talking to other musicians that are in their like late teens, early 20s, and it is a huge age gap. So it is like, I do feel like there's a generation underneath me that is now, and it's weird seeking advice from me, but I'll give whatever advice I think I have. It might not be the best advice, but it's words out of my face. So there's that.
I mean, and sometimes like being in a position where you've had that experience is like, look, I don't know if this is universal, but let me try and save you these 3 things that ruined my life and cost me a year. And maybe that's enough. And then a lot of the other aspect of it, probably more so that I deal with, is I'm really passionate about independent creators having basic business skills, because there's a whole lot of exploitation that goes on. And especially 4 or 5 years ago, as podcasting became a thing that everybody knew what it was, there was a whole lot of speculative, here, I'll give you $1,000 and I owe your stuff kind of thing. Are there like types of questions that you get asked now that you're like, I never would have been expected to be asked a question like that? Like, do people ask you about like, how do you store your files, or other things like that?
It's weird because I mean, most of what I get asked is, how do you get started? And it's like, that's tough because I took a shot 10 years ago and it just kind of worked out for me. And you can't really teach luck, but you can teach like being ready. And I've talked to people about this before. Like, I went to PAX in 2013 and watched a panel on video game music. And the guy, I forget his name, that was doing the thing, he said, he's a video game composer, and he's like, the only friends of mine who didn't make it are the ones who quit. And that's something like that I've like held dear this whole time. Like, just be tenacious, do not quit, and more so try to find people who are making things that you like, and then you feel like you can contribute to.
Yeah, that's probably my number one piece of advice whenever people ask us that question is, don't go alone.
Yeah.
Find friends. For sure. Is, team up with buddies, and if one buddy's really good at the spreadsheets and another buddy's really good at the the organizing and the scheduling, then brilliant. Build yourself a team, because everybody's got their own strengths. And
a very dear friend of ours once described Marguerite perfectly accurately as having a black belt in committee.
Yes,
that's fantastic though. Yeah. That's honestly what it is, because in addition to like, you don't go alone to find people you work with, but people want to work with their friends, right? Like, it's way easier for someone to say, oh, we're doing this thing, we need music. Oh, call so-and-so. We're already, if they already know who you are, it's easier than trying to vet somebody who, you have no rapport with.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other really golden rule about that, good pieces of advice is, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work with an asshole. I don't care how brilliant you are. An asshole is a gender neutral term, which is why I use it. But be someone who is good to work with. Almost as much. Spend time being someone good to work with as much as you spend time on the thing that it is you love to do, because that will get you just as far as whatever your particular talent is.
And I would piggyback on that with saying, like, once you get the job, don't be an asshole, because like you said, no one wants to work with that. I could be the best musician in the world, but if I'm an asshole, why would anybody bother?
Exactly.
Anyone, and once you reach a certain level, can make the music. It's fine. And then on top of that, make the next person in line's job as easy as possible. If you consider like a creative thing, like No Sleep more so, all of my music goes to the producers and they have to place it. So I try to set it up in a way that it's easy for them to, incorporate it into the story. Or, with Black Tabby, it's a bit different because it's literally just like sending them the file and then they convert it. And then I don't know how the coding works. That's not my realm, but some sort of magical massaging happens and then the music's in the game.
That
magical massaging, where all of a sudden there's a wonderful YouTube playlist of all the lo-fi versions of all the Slay the Princess tracks. Marguerite wakes up very happy. Yes.
I just want to pull a couple of comments from the chat real quick.
Yeah.
Firstly,
Sure.
Urban, when we were talking about how best to get started, said, I don't know, man, how about you get talking to the guy in your local comic shop? I was the guy in the local comic shop for Urban.
Alasdair's superpower is that if he doesn't know everyone, he knows someone who knows everyone. He is like a nexus point of the universe. And that has nothing to do with his vocal performance or his writing talent. That is just being a personable motherfucker.
I am avuncular. And spell it too. Right. And the amazing Kareem also said, know your stuff, be on time, be nice to work with.
Yeah.
And it
that needs to be a t-shirt right there, if it isn't already, for sure. Because just not being there's a lot of people in the world who do what you do. I mean, and that's not imposter syndrome, that's just statistics. But if you're the one who's easiest to work with, then they put you to the top of everybody's list.
Yep, that's how you win.
Oh God, I might need Alasdair Stewart as everyone's uncle on a coffee mug.
Okay. Well, I already bought your Christmas present, so I have to think of something else.
It is true. Like, it's just, and I know what you mean with like knowing everybody. Like, I feel like I know people in every realm to some extent. Like, I know one of Hans Zimmer's assistants, weirdly enough.
Sweet,
I know, and it's all because of, like, you start working with people and you kind of get acquainted and it spreads out. Like, that's how, like, speaking of comic book shops, I got killed in a Batman comic this year because of No Sleep. Yeah.
Oh, talking like that are the greatest thing in the world.
And it's all because, like, you start to meet, like, you meet people and you just meet new people and befriend them, and your network just grows and grows and grows. And no, I don't even like calling it a network. It's just your friends,
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I went to the Bourbon Trail with Mitch Gerrits, who does the Batman comics, for a week last month. It was a great time.
Okay, tell me more about what the Bourbon Trail is and how I can do this.
It's
piqued my interest.
Go on.
It's in between Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And you hit up all the spots. We were down there for a week filming a TV pilot. Me, Mitch, Graham Rowett, and Dan Kuttner. He's a Broadway director. It was meant to just be this, like, dude trip for me and Dan and Mitch to go hang out, and it just became this whole thing. It was going to be 3 days. It turned into 7, and we were filming the whole time. It might be out at some point somewhere.
I've actually watched released movies that you could tell started out as a weekend trip and then turned into a tax write-off. So, sounds like you're in good company. Exactly. So
it was great, and it's all because of that. Everybody knows somebody, and it just.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that. I just like to meet people who are doing cool stuff, and
cool stuff is the greatest. It gets very infectious, and then we don't notice that we're not sleeping anymore. It's just
right.
I
Exactly.
Want to sleep. I want to do the cool things.
I'm having too much fun.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned filming for a movie and stuff. So we know that you do audio drama music and video game music. Are there other hidden talents you're going to share with us?
I'm meant to be having my first TV show coming out, but I can't say anything about that.
Okay.
Other than that, it's still kind of up in the air, I think, but that would be the next thing. As far as the TV show, or as far as the Bourbon TV show thing goes, I'm on camera very little. I do not like being on camera. I'm not that guy. I'm a post guy for a reason.
I'm a post guy. I like that. That's good. That's good.
But yeah, that's
is that part of this whole you're now transitioning into doing composition full time?
Sure. Yeah, and that all started in 2020, at the end of 2020.
A lot of things started for people's careers in 2020.
Yeah. Well, I worked before all this. My family, my dad owns a machining company, and I worked there for 17 years. I worked there since I was a teenager, and then when I started to make enough money off music, I kind of had to sit down with him, like, hey, I want to give this a go. And so he basically said, give me X amount of time to replace you in the company, and then, you can get out of here. And COVID happened, and because we make parts for pharmaceutical equipment, we became very essential. And I had to stick around a little bit longer than I initially planned, but it all worked out in the end.
Got it.
See, I have no musical background. I worked for my family's company. I have a business degree in marketing. Like, I have very little musical history. I have no one musical in my family. It's just, so everybody watching, you can do this too. Trust me, you can figure this out.
And
believe me.
I think that's amazing because I do come from a musical family and a musical background.
Really? Okay.
And so one of the first things I will always gravitate toward in any piece of audio production is what's the music, what are the elements? Like, this is bad, to the point where we owned the Hamilton soundtrack and I refused to listen to it until I'd seen the play that we bought tickets for 18 months in the future.
Wow.
Because I have like this
she
really
held to that too.
I have this really strong preference of I want to experience this as the creator intended it to be experienced the first time. Sure. Because I have, kind of headcanon syndrome. Like the first thing I do is like what's going to be it in my head forever. And so it's one of the reasons I really like your music, and I listen to a lot of video game and movie music. You have this unique ability, like almost more so than Hollywood film music, to like bring emotion into a scene, but at that subconscious level. There's a good analogy that gets used in the publishing world. There's this famous editor named David Mass, and he talks about the idea that you can't tell someone to experience an emotion. But what you have to do is you have to describe the emotion they're having underneath the emotion you want them to experience. So by describing, like, for example, the sense of anxiety they're feeling, then the more surface sensation of an upset stomach or a dry throat is going to be kind of, it feels like it was naturally generated by the person, and that hooks them in a way much more than telling somebody you have a dry throat and an upset stomach, therefore you are anxious.
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of, to me, the value of the type of music that you compose is how can I tease emotions or put you in mental states where you are receptive to the event you are witnessing or experiencing, but in a way that doesn't feel blatant or artificial. And that's really hard to do.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly kind to say.
And I would build on that a little bit as well, and perhaps be slightly blunter, which is your music is not manipulative. And so many scores, so many deeply average scores are manipulative. Forrest Gump is a movie beloved of many people. My experience watching it is one of my fondest memories for very different reasons, which is about three-quarters of the way through it, as my nascent little critical faculty started to go, I don't like this. One of my friends leaned over and went, "Why are people crying?" And I was like, I get it now. Yeah. And it was...
I think that is the Pixar syndrome. Like, specifically the movie Up was like intentionally designed to emotionally devastate you
with the heart for 25 minutes.
For the first 15 minutes of that movie, and then expect you to be like receptive. I'm like, maybe we should have edited this movie so that we didn't have to kill people emotionally to then get them to experience.
What's exhausting, right? Like,
yeah.
I have mildly staggered out of exactly two films. Up is one of them. The first, How to Train Your Dragon, is the other. And How to Train Your Dragon is very good. But at the same time, I was like, that was a lot of emotions for what I was told would just be a movie about dragons.
I just want to learn how to train my dragon.
Right, exactly. And now I'm sobbing and re-examining elements of my childhood and blah, 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 blah.
Why am I thinking about choices?
Do you have, like, when you're collaborating with somebody, I mean, well, I guess my ultimate question here is that like a conscious consideration for you when you're composing? Are you like aiming towards, hey, I need people to kind of feel like this as we're going into this? Or how do you
That's a good one.
kind of approach? I mean, and I think it's interesting that I know you primarily for horror composition, No Sleep, et cetera, because, we are big fans of horror in this community. And we can talk forever about the incredible emotional range that comes with horror that just gets written off as ooga booga scary.
Yep.
But do you have like a particular approach that you take when you're like, okay, this scene needs a piece of music? Like, what goes through your head when you're getting ready for something like that?
It's a good question. I'll start by saying I think the reason I do what I do is because I've tried to like write solo music. I've tried the band thing, all of that kind of stuff. It just never stuck. I have no ability to tell my own story. I have nothing to say artistically. It's like I can't do lyrics. I need someone else to tell me what they want me to do. And it works really well for me. And so when someone says, I want, this piece of music to have this idea, I at least, it's like, I feel like I'm a blank slate, and then I get filled with an idea, and then I know exactly what to do. I have a very good imagination, so I always just like close my eyes and I try to think of what it looks like and sounds like. But without that input, I am useless. I swear. There's nothing I've tried to write songs without any of that, without collaboration. It just does not work for me. It's just...
Okay, I have like
well that way, I think.
6 follow-up questions of that alone. But we're about to have to engage in commerce, so this is an excellent place for us to come back. And I have a follow-up question as well, but there's a comment in the chat that we have to talk about. And that is, Sir, it is my Thor-given right to weaponize A minor to G major shifts. Which is a brilliant comment, bluntly.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so on that...
Bombshell.
I'm literally reeling here because I'm like making this analogy in my head that like, okay, so what you do with music is similar to how I feel like I approach editing. I'm terrified of a blank page. I couldn't write a story if you gave me a piece of paper and told me to write something. But if he dribbles out 400 words, I can instantly look at them and go, okay, let's fix this and go here. And then it's all better. I'm sorry. I know that's a terribly pejorative.
I'm not sure how I feel about the word dribble.
I'm trying not to be pejorative.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Long day, but what I consider my creative talent is shaping what other people produce as raw material in a lot of ways. And you just said the same thing about music, and then I'm like, well, then what does music raw material
I can see your brain rewiring.
I'm like trying to figure this out. It's just fascinating.
It's literally the same thing. I just really like being part of a bigger machine. And, so if I can be, so when Tony asks me to write a track for, say, The Princess or whatever, I'm like, he'll send me either like part of the script or art or just like give me, I need something to fuel this, and then it'll come out. And then you can tell me if it's good or bad, and we can go from there. And
it's almost an alchemical kind of relationship. You need the reagent to be able to like work around.
But I can get the reaction and formulate something for him.
Fascinating.
And then whether it's a yes or a no is a whole other story. But
right. Okay, let's take our quick little ad break, and then we will come back to talk about this.
Capitalism showed up.
Yeah, capitalism showed up. I'm thinking we might need a capitalism emoji. It's capitalism time.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
There is one. It's the $sign or the pound sign, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. Okay, chat. So the ad break is gonna. The ad may actually already be running, and I may have misread this. That could be terribly awkward. Well, because it's not letting me click on the let's run an ad button. So maybe the ad's just been running this whole. It already ran.
No.
Okay, we'll just. Well, I don't know how ad breaks run in.
Back.
Yeah, I don't know how ad breaks run in VOD. So you may have just missed a really fascinating conversation about editorial process and musical composition, which we will all experiment with. But let's keep talking about it because it's amazing. I was just going to kind of riff on that and say, I think that's like one of the key indicators of a great partnership. We were talking earlier about don't do this alone, find a community, find people with similar skills. Yep. I just never would have imagined that, when I have kind of like the classical image of a composer in my head, it's, somebody who has drawers of music and just says, oh, what do you need? You need a this? You need a that? You just kind of pull it out and see if it adapts. But then I think about like, the analogy I will use is like the creation of themes, right? And that's the whole huge discussion about the Marvel movies was always, oh, they're not as good because we don't have
iconic
dun,
themes.
Dun, 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 dun. We don't have those iconic themes that at least in commercialized art, we're very used to kind of latching onto. But, from the perspective of, you don't start with creating a theme, do you? They just kind of evolve.
Yeah. And I think you can also have like, I do have drawers of music, as it were.
Okay.
I do have that, but I just don't know what to do with it. So it's until something, there's been times where I just have a folder on my computer called extras. And it's just like, most of the time I'm writing something for something else. And I'm like, this doesn't really fit. And so I'll just throw it in this folder for later and I can get back to it.
So like authors have offcuts. I'm like, I can't use that scene.
I can't use it. So, and so there's been times where I'm like, okay, well, maybe it'll work for this and I'll try it. And then, so I do have some of that, but like I said, for me, it's way better if I'm just fed materials. Like if you saw the chats between me, Tony, and Abby, where I'm just like, you guys got any music, like any art, like something, like just feed me. And
just
then,
give me something here. Yeah.
Something. And I love seeing it. I love it just because the second especially, Abby's incredible. So the second I see the art, I'm just like, I know how that should sound. And then Tony agrees.
Do you have like a favorite example? Do you have like an example that sticks out in your mind?
What's funny is, so I think about the two projects, and when we did Scarlet Hollow, between all of the Scarlet Hollow stuff we've done and Slay the Princess, no theme had more rewrites than Stella's. And
wow.
I don't think I realized it until I was like kind of reorganizing my files on my computer, and I realized I had like Stella 1, Stella 2, Stella 3, Stella 4, Stella 5, and I had like this list of Stella themes, and so it was a big, but that was the first thing. Like I think we did Stella's theme before we even finished the theme song for Scarlet Hollow, and so it was probably the most back and forth, and then we kind of built this rapport, and so it happened, since then it happens way less often that something is like outright rejected, but in contrast to that, the princess theme, like the overarching theme of the game that's used throughout the whole thing, I think was the first shot at it. And and it's by far the most popular thing I've ever written, her theme. So it's been totally different, but something clicked with that. That was before I even knew like the whole scope of the game. It's the whole thing started as such a smaller idea, I think. And then, it was just kind of like, we need a theme for the princess, and it's like it needs to be able to loop. The whole game's about loops. So, I hope I just rambled, I feel like, for 10 minutes.
This is great. Okay. This is fantastic. Okay. It's really good.
One of the things I really want to pull out from that is the point Marguerite made that this is a commonality of process across multiple disciplines.
Yeah.
I have an offcuts folder. The big narrative project I did last year, there was an episode of it that we realized would not work unless we moved it 6 months and turned it into a Christmas episode. Then it worked like a charm, and it was.
Hey.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is I don't know about whether this works on your side of the things. I hope it does, but there is no feeling on earth like realizing you have a problem and you accidentally solved it 6 months ago.
You're like, oh, didn't I do that thing? Oh, look, here's that thing, and it's perfect.
The best feeling, because then you're like, oh, I have free time now. This is done. I already have this.
Yay, past me. Yeah.
I can go play a video game or something.
Or write another one.
I am noticing the chat, the theme V1, V2. That's literally, I have folders of like
final dash, like, this one. Yeah.
And I even go back and I forget, because like it always ends up with like the damsel final mastered. Like it's all caps, just so I know that is the final iteration of this file, because everything else is, it won't even open at this point because it's been changed so much.
I may have submitted a Star Trek book a couple of years ago with a file name that I did not clean up, which is why my editor's eyebrows raised when he received an email with a file attached to it called Jesus fucking Christ, Alasdair. Just send this one.
This is the final one, I promise. For real. Last one, I swear.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah. Wow, we could have like a whole hour of discussion about how the hell do you manage files and why is nothing ever final and why do you always come back to it and have to make another tweet later? It's just
poorly is the answer to how do I organize files. It's a mess.
Yeah.
The other thing I find really interesting is how, from what you tell me, the process of building Stella's theme, and because she's so important to Scarlet Hollow, kind of almost mirrors how you interact with Stella in the game. Because she has such a huge journey, especially across those first 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And I totally get why that piece of music was kind of evolved so much and it was so hard to pin down. Because she's not the same person at the end of chapter 4 by any means.
And I think and what's funny is I didn't know any of that when I wrote her. I wrote that theme. The only thing I knew about Stella was she's kind of the like cute cryptid girl in town who's kind of quirky and different than everyone else, and it's like she's like your bridge to the rest of the holler, and and so what's cool about that is I only knew that about her when I wrote that theme. So as the game evolves and when certain things happen and are revealed about Stella, like I'm as shocked as anyone else. So then I have to they're like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but they're like, we need music for this cut scene for episode 4. And I'm like, oh, God,
You're like, oh, no, I need fodder, but I'm also terrified of what I'm about to learn.
I also want to absolutely compliment you for getting very audible capital letters on cut scene there, because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Right? I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but there was a journey, and that's just... Yeah, I won't say anything else about that, but play Scarlet Hollow if you haven't. It's fantastic.
It's so good.
Exactly. More. That's the problem. It's like, the like conflict between like as somebody who creates things, you're like, I spent so much time on this and I'm finally ready to let it out into the world, and then people are like come back 12 minutes later and they're like, I finished it, can I have some more? And I'm like,
oh yeah.
No,
yeah.
No, God.
Yeah. Like, oh no, just slow down, enjoy it, please.
Just go do it again. We'll come back to it.
Like I know people have been asking for Scarlet Hollow episode 5, and it's like, oh, give us some time. We just finished this huge game.
Well, and it's a very good game, and it's very concrete and discreet, and when you say huge, we're all like, why is that the princess up against Karlach in Game of the Year? Kind of
right,
huge.
Holy shit!
I like seeing that image really kind of blew my mind. That the gaming community was looking at Slay the Princess on the same level as they were looking at Baldur's Gate 3, and I was just
which is mind blowing.
Yeah,
when I saw that the Game of the Year voting thing, and I forget what the outlet it was, but like seeing like Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Slay the Princess, I was like, what on earth? Like how this little tiny team of a handful of people, and the game is. I don't know how long it takes to play like everything, but 4 hours to get through it the first
4
time.
hours for a complete discrete run.
But there's still so much you can go from there. I like the replayability is huge with the game, but it's the whole reception has been mind blowing. For me, I can't speak for anyone else, but I think we're all pretty happy with the reception.
You're like, yeah, this is cool. Talk to me about how when you get to at the end of Slay the Princess, it gives you a playlist.
It does. That was Tony's idea. It's really cool.
I have never seen that before. That was so cool and so smart.
I don't know how Tony thought of it, but I just remember him messaging me like, hey, we had this idea, and then he was going to link to the Spotify playlist because the soundtrack's so big, it won't be as one album on Spotify. I had to break it into two, so we had to like make our own custom playlist and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really cool now that, because it's my music, I have all this like behind the scenes, statistics about it. So I can see like how many playlists have been made out of the music and it's cool because people are doing it. They're actually going in and making...
Can you like read us some of the playlists that get created with Slay the Princess tracks? Pick some. It's like
I'll see if I can pull it up on my
you
phone.
should
It's
make like a TikTok, which is like, look at the
it's so there's so many, and it is cool because a lot of people are just like, I can't pull it up on my phone. Dang it! It'll have to be. It's like a whole thing to get your stats on
Damn.
Spotify. It's so annoying, but like and you'll see a specific playlist, and it's like 8 tracks or whatever. So they're literally just making their our song playlist. And like that means so much to me because it's extending beyond the game, and they can sit there and listen to the music and still like reconnect with the experience they had. And I know people are having like really profound experiences with it, and I'm trying to not get emotional about it, but like it's a really big deal for me. Like that's such a special idea to me.
I'm looking up the play count on the soundtrack right now, and you're gonna get. You don't have to even guess what the track is, because what's it called? It was always that easy or whatever. Yeah. I literally put that on loop for about 4 hours one day.
I need to make your 24-hour loop version of that one.
I'm just loop. I was just listening to it forever. Yeah,
I love that, and I love that like. I was really, really, really nervous about the soundtrack for this game, for Slay the Princess, and it's just because it's really hard when I'm working. What's the saying? To see the trees through the woods or whatever.
Forest for the trees.
Yeah. I can't I'm so close to it that the whole time I'm just kind of trusting Abby and Tony's like grander vision of everything, because they have a better idea of the whole picture, right? I'm focusing on this one thing.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm like, this is going to get boring to people really fast because it's so repetitive. It's, everything's derivative of the main princess's theme. And like my only goal was to try to harness that feeling and those notes and change the vibe. Like that's,
See, for some people, I think you're right. That does have the potential to be
sure.
boring. But like the counterpart of that is, the story is scaring the pants off of us while this piece of music is going on, so we're a little distracted. Sure. But the counterpart of that, I would say, is that for someone like me and the way I listen to music, those little variations on the theme are like catnip. They are exactly, they feel like Easter eggs that were written just for me to discover. I love them so much.
It's also a really, really fascinating example, and I think, and I don't say this lightly, I think it is the first game I've seen since Journey that genuinely uses the soundtrack as a means of telling you where you are.
Wow.
Because
the Journey comparison is huge. Like that's...
Do you know, that game is very important to us. Like when we were dating internationally before we ever met in person, we would play that game together. And you know how the game will randomly pair you up with people. It paired us the first time we played it, and we played the entire game all the way through. That thing is like one of the pieces of our emotional firmament. That game is so important. But you're right. The way that the music positions the emotion and your position in your journey is really unique. And Slay the Princess absolutely does that. The way that those themes exist, but they take different like focus or emotional value to them, depending on like, are you in the long quiet? Are you at the start of the path? Like, and then it becomes that whole like repeat until funny thing where you're like, it's the same fucking piece of music and I'm back in the same fucking path again.
And even better, that thing you do, and I think it hits on either the second or third iteration, where you get to, you are on a path in the woods.
Yeah.
And it's the same music, but this is the only way I can describe it, you've curdled it.
Oh, you're too good at that. You need to stop that. It literally makes me want to like throw the controller away sometimes. I'm like, yeah.
I forget what's the term. We have a term for it inside the team, like, because it's the one that's like the one bridge between Scarlet Hollow and Slay the Princess is that effect.
What a neat thing to make a thematic through note. I really like that.
From Scarlet Hollow episode 3, when you do like the puzzle rooms and all that kind of stuff, and everything gets kind of warbly on you.
Yuckification.
Yeah.
The term the chat just came up with. I love it.
It's like, it's, I think I can't use the term because it would spoil further things in Scarlet Hollow. But it's that whole thing, like, Tony loves that. It's the whole, and all I do is I guess I shouldn't give away the secret sauce, but it's like basically just like running the bass track and just, well, you said I can cuss. It's just fucking it up with like tape, like just running it through tape and just, mangling it to hell. And yeah, it's like our trademark thing now of like something's definitely not right.
It's but more than that, I mean, I think that is the way that it presents itself in the music.
Mm-hmm.
But Tony and Abby are talented enough, but they also do it with the visuals, and they also do it with the narrative, which is you build this very clear expectation, and then you subvert it, and in a way that is hitting all of your senses. So regardless of how you're most emotionally interacting with the story or its presentation, it gets you. You can't get away from it.
Oh yeah, and the way that in both games it goes in lockstep with visual shifts as well. I'm really glad that you brought up the use of it in Scarlet Hollow 3, because that hits at exactly the same time you get the photos. And you get kind of the photo montage art, which is just wrong.
You're like, this is realistic all of a sudden, I don't like it.
Yeah. Why am I seeing things? I do not enjoy this. I do not wish to perceive this.
Yes, exactly.
But at the same time, because you've got that kind of absolute lockstep between the music and the imagery and the gameplay.
I gotta pull that line now.
It feels... It's like the old line Neil Gaiman likes about how a horror writer's job is to take your hand, lead you down a dark alley, then let your hand go and run away.
I love that.
Isn't it good?
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, well, hang on. John Rogers was talking about it the other day. Is like, horror is when you see it, terror was when you realize it sees you. And
it's terror, and your music is such a huge part of how that works.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that's exactly right, and that's why I had a better idea of what they wanted when I saw the art for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the first thing they sent me was an image of Stella in that, and I was like, "Oh, this is very not okay."
Yeah,
and I'm a very visual person, so trying to connect that with sound, and it's just. How can I think curdling it is a great way to put it. Like, that's exactly how it feels. Like, it's just curdled and wrong, and it's,
it's
molding or something. Like, it's just,
but it's still recognizable. You know what you've lost. You know what it's supposed to be, but it's not. And so there's that sense of not just subverted expectation, but also something has been lost. Something has been taken from you and turned into something kind of against your will.
Yeah, it's got that real kind of through the looking glass effect, because you can see, your brain can see where the music that sounds normal is, and it can also see that you're not there. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think now. Now it's like I'm having all these memories from writing that stuff, and it's like there was a because I always ask for reference tracks, because it's easier. There's two ways to approach it. I can send you stuff until you tell me what you want, or if you already have an idea, you can kind of send me, we want something like this. I forget what it is, the piece of music, but it's like, it sounds like music in a retirement home through busted speakers.
So that kind of
like
tinny,
literally what it is. So it's really tinny and kind of distorted and kind of like, lo-fi kind of sound, and there's something weird. It's like weirdly upsetting, but it's also kind of nostalgic. It's a really bizarre feeling that kind of, comes over you when you hear it.
I wonder if that comes because one of the things I maintain, I don't know if this is accurate or not. I've never asked Tony and Abby this, but there is one sequence in the most recent chapter of Scarlet Hollow that pings me very hard as I know exactly what sequence of Silent Hill 2 that comes from. And so I think Silent Hill, when you talk about tinny distorted speakers, I'm like, that sounds like a Silent Hill based kind of influence, and I'm wondering if that
I love that you go there, and your comment about the old folks home instantly jumps me to the John Carpenter movie in the Mouth of Madness, And there is a moment about halfway through that where one of the main characters is committed. And
Right.
it's a great film, and much like Scarlet Hollow, it's one of those things that you should kind of come to cold. But it's one of those points I kind of cherish, where I'm the sort of person who every now and again is the only person in the theater who laughs at a particular beat in a horror movie. And the main character being dragged into this insane asylum as we've only just begun by the carpenters plays through a speaker that is at best 25% functional made me laugh way too hard.
Oh,
nice.
I know exactly what you mean too. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like,
do you like doing things like that? Like,
I do.
Like
I do.
Easter egg kind of things.
Yeah, I think it is fun. I like Easter egg stuff a lot. There was actually one point. There was a track for which one was it? For Slay the Princess, and it was almost too close to Stella's theme, and they were like, you can't do that. Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want it to be so, it's not subtle enough. So
that is text, not subtext.
Yeah, exactly. It was in bold print on the cover, I think.
I love it.
That I had stumbled into the wrong part of music.
Like, probably the only Slay the Princess fan art I haven't seen is like Scarlet Hollow Slay the Princess crossover fan art.
A crossover, yeah.
It's got to exist.
All I want is in episode 5 to see somebody wearing like a Slay the Princess t-shirt or something.
I
don't know. Because I don't know how much. I don't know if they have any plans for crossover or anything like that. But it would be a fun little nod, right? Like,
well, geez, at this point, if you win a best indie game or something sort of reward, you could do what they did in Toem. I don't know if you know this, but Toem was another little indie game, and it won a BAFTA, one of the British awards, and they put a little BAFTA statue inside.
That's cool.
The game, and I would
love to win a BAFTA.
Well, yes, and you should, and I would love to see. I love seeing little references like that where you can tell, like, you're in conversation with the audience and the experience of the game itself.
Toem has such a lovely, friendly style to it, so it's this really gentle flex. It's just like, oh yes, here's our BAFTA. Now go take photos of lovely things.
Yes,
I'm sure they would do something like that. There'd be a BAFTA and covered in dust in the manor or something like that, or I'm sure they would do that.
We just need more plushies at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, I've got my my Wayne plushie over there. I've got a Scarlet Hollow poster right here. I've got all sorts of goodies around.
I'm so jealous.
do you want me to grab it? I can grab it.
I totally want to see the Wayne plushie. That's why people can stare over your chair at the studio a little bit more while you walk away. This is great.
I've got this too.
We are all about props. I love it.
I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for knick-knack kind of thing. So, yeah, I always sign up for the Topatico stuff they do. So I've got the Wayne plushie.
Everything.
And I have a 7-year-old daughter who loves this guy. Like, I have to keep retrieving it from her bed because she likes to snuggle up with him at night, which is
that's not therapy waiting to happen.
And I also have all of they do the little keychain releases,
I remember the little woodcuts.
The Tabitha, the woodcuts. Again, I only have Tabitha left because my daughter has stolen Stella and Wayne.
We have the beach poster, I think.
Yep, I've got that right here on my wall. I love that one.
Nice.
I'm such a fan of their work that it's I don't know if it's weird to I want all of the merch. I want all of it in my home because I love it so much.
Not weird at all.
Not weird at all.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, if you're somebody who really values the collaboration part of the creative process, why would we not want more of our favorite stuff, right?
Like I don't know if that's a really common thing, but I'm just so grateful to be part of it that I'm a fan of it. I love watching people play it on Twitch. I love I love all that stuff. I want to Slay the Princess t-shirt as bad as anyone else, So
tell you, we want to do some Christmas shopping. Please.
Right, exactly.
Please.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's kind of a weird, I know imposter syndrome is obviously a thing people are familiar with, but it's even more so when you're a fan of the thing you're working on. It's a weird feeling, but I wouldn't have it any other way because that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I want it to be as good as I can make it because I care so much about it,
And that's wonderful. And you're obviously very skilled at it. And thank you so much for talking to us about it. I know
my pleasure.
We've got a bunch of questions that are starting to rack up.
Sorry,
so.
I will talk.
No,
I'm a talker. I'll talk for hours and hours and hours.
It's all good.
Yeah. Slay the. Oh God. Oh no. You know what we need? We're talking about Slay the Princess merch. Plushies. There would have to be a lot of them. But what if we did ye old paper dolls? Like a Slay the Princess paper doll, and then you could put the different outfits and stuff on. Oh, a chess set! A chess set with all the different princesses, and then all the different other things.
Yeah.
Wow.
All the pawns are just the paranoid. Like,
yeah.
The skeptical is my bro, man. Back off. I'm like, yeah, you ask those questions, boy. Yeah.
My heart went out to the cheated. Just that whole kind of, this is bullshit. We can't win. Fuck.
Yeah, I love that one. The cheated is one of my favorites for sure.
Oh, very much so. Okay, mods. I know that we've been kind of stacking up some questions for Brendan. So if I'm gonna try scrolling back. We'll see if this is at all successful. But let's see. I know there's questions because normally I'm better about like keeping track of them, but I have not done a good job of keeping track of them.
I will say, I saw someone in chat mention Philip Glass, and there was a Philip Glass track that was a huge inspiration for the Tower.
Tell me.
Racking my brain, trying to remember what it's called. So I'm a big comic book fan, and Dr. Manhattan is one of my all-time favorite characters. Yeah. I'm a big Dr. Manhattan fan, and the song in the Watchmen movie that plays when Dr. Manhattan is describing time and all that kind of stuff.
I'm on it.
It's I should have it on my phone because it was a reference track.
Hang on. And I found the list of questions. I'm just pulling up my Philip Glass albums off my phone.
Right.
To see if I have a guess.
Oh, do I not have it saved on here? I don't.
I only have.
I'm seeing it as Pruitt, Igo, and Prophecies.
That is probably it. But it's like that. It's like that organ, arpeggio. And that was like that. For some reason, I started, when I was working on the Tower, they were like, "Have you tried doing the princess theme in with an organ?" And I was like, "That sounds like a terrible idea, but I'll try it." And because I don't like the organ as an instrument, it's really hard to work with, I think. Anyway, but I did it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this sounds like the Dr. Manhattan scene from Watchmen. Let's go with this. This is awesome. That was a great idea. That's the best idea we've ever had. Let's do it."
Have you played Baldur's Gate 3?
I haven't. That's I am saving it for my winter break time. Brilliant Christmas. Idea. I'm picking it up on the PS5, and I'm gonna run
talk to me after you've played Baldur's Gate 3, and you've met one of the antagonists, who you will instantly be able to identify as relevant to this conversation.
Okay.
And then you will talk about your experience.
Strong Dr. Manhattan vibes.
Strong Dr. Manhattan vibes.
Okay.
He is a Disney princess. He gets his own evil villain theme song.
Okay.
So
I'm like the opposite of you in that I've never played the game, but I've listened to the soundtrack.
Okay.
I do that all the time. I download the soundtracks for movies before they're out, and I'm just like, I just want to hear what they're doing. So I've been listening to the music. It's very, very good.
Okay. Have you heard the All Mortal Lives song?
I'd have to check the title just because I just hit shuffle and go about my day, and it plays through my head.
But I would be fascinated to hear what you think about that motherfucker when you run into him, because he's a very special boy, and we love him very much.
I'm more excited to play Baldur's Gate 3 now. If I need it,
I've completed my first playthrough. And now I need to play like 6 more. So there we go.
I totally get. I hear it's awesome.
It is very awesome.
I hear it's the second best game of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
I hear very similar things.
Yes. Okay, so I found my questions. So let's start at the top. Do you ever find yourself limited by the technology you have to hand when you're composing?
No. No, I think the technology I have is almost there's almost too much. The options are too limitless, and sometimes it's easier. So with Scarlet Hollow, I don't really have any kind of box that I need to fit in. I get to play. I feel like the music in Scarlet Hollow is a lot more video gamey, and I took that approach like like Kanika's theme is very video gamey to me. Stella's theme is very video gamey to me. And I love that because it's all like, you know, I can use these like old 90s synthesizers and all this kind of other stuff and do whatever I want. But with Scarlet Hollow, they were like, we want to keep this as classical as possible. We want to use piano and strings. So there's something almost comforting about like all of these other things are removed from my, you know, my palette, and I have to find a way to be creative in this box, you know,
and then
because otherwise there's so many possibilities. No, I was otherwise if I don't have that box, it's just like I've got 6 terabytes of instruments on my computer. It's, you know, I'm never wanting for something like that. It's too much.
And then the other thing that the Scarlet Hollow soundtrack, of course, has is this very strong sense of place and, you know, kind of this I don't know about you, but a lot of times whenever there was a movie set in a place, you're like, okay, that means I'm going to hear this instrument.
For sure. Yeah. Right? That's the banjo in Scarlet Hollow. 100%.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. And did you like rail against that, or you're like, look, I know there's got to be it in here, so I'm going to find a way to make it work? Or
well, when they told me they wanted I think they specifically said, you know, we want the main melody of Scarlet Hollow to be on a banjo.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, well, I don't have a banjo. I don't know anyone who plays a banjo. Luckily, I know some musicians around here. A friend of a friend of a friend knows a banjo player she's out of West Virginia or North Carolina or something like proper Appalachia. And, you know, I sent her an email. I sent her the sheet music. She played it, sent it back to me. I dropped it in. It was a piece of cake. So
sweet.
Amazing.
Trina Enig, I think was her name. Fantastic to, you know, breeze to work with. So nice. So that is the one, like the only part of the Scarlet Hollow soundtrack that is a real instrument outside of later when I had Dan play the guitar on stuff. Dan Zapula is the banjo in the opening theme is a real banjo.
Okay.
Because it's very hard to emulate that on a computer.
So the Twitch is not doing a very good job of telling me it's going to ad breaks, but it started in ad breaks. So
oh, my bad. Okay, sorry.
No, it's my fault, not yours. Why don't we take 3 minutes here, because we've been going an hour and a quarter without a break.
And
we probably would again if we don't. So let's take that break right now, and we'll be back in 2-3 minutes, everybody.
Sure, that sounds great.
Oh wow! Is that from
Yeah.
your like appearance?
Yeah, so this is The Brave and the Bold #1 by Tom King and Mitch Gerrits. So it's like the artist prints of my death.
Dude!
Yeah. So these are going to be framed.
I was gonna say you get those framed up on the wall,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, it's super. It's like the coolest thing that's ever happened to me.
That's so fantastic. Chat, we've just been dorking out about Batman prints. It's all good. All right, let me pull up my list of questions again. Here we go. I'm very jealous of this studio setup.
I've been a Batman nerd my whole life. So when Mitch was like, "Hey, do you want to be killed by the Joker?" I was like, nothing would make me happier in my whole life.
People just wanted to confirm that the banjo player was Trina Emig, E-M-I-G?
E-N-I-G, I think. Let me double check. That man's been years.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, she might not even have a website. I think she just plays like in a bluegrass band or something like that.
Okay. Cool. If you have that, it's amazing, but you don't have to. I will ask you another question. Let's test your multitasking
no, it is.
skills.
I'm sorry, it is Emig. Yeah, E-M-I-G. That's right. That's her.
Okay, nice. Oh yeah, she's got a website here. Here we go.
She does. Okay, great. Yeah. If you ever need
Amazing.
banjo for anything, she was fantastic. So.
Fantastic. I want to look at like book, listen, shows, news, and links. I'm going to look at news and links and see if.
Yeah. I wonder if she even has any idea, like, what Scarlet Hollow is. Or
right?
Like it was such a different scope back then.
Yeah. No, totally. Okay, next question here. Here we go. Man, sometimes you just got to be killed by the Joker, right? I mean...
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why not?
You mentioned teaching yourself new skills like piano and music theory. Do you tend to learn skills because you have a specific project that requires them? Or do you kind of collect the skills and find projects for them, or a secret third thing / somewhere in between?
I think somewhere in between. Like there's a lot of times where I think, oh, this sound would fit really well. I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, let's learn how to do that, and then you can do that thing. And a lot of it comes from listening to things that I think are like comparable to what I'm trying to achieve. Like a good example of this is we did a series on the No Sleep podcast called "This Book Will Kill You," and listening to like the synopsis and all this stuff, I was like, man, this gives me a very strong like Mark Corvin kind of feel. He did The Witch and Black Phone. And I loved the Black Phone soundtrack, and it's really, really unique, and it sounds really different. So a lot of the times it's like, I want to make my version of the Black Phone. I'm going to do my best to rip this guy off and sound exactly like him.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? And
I can't, and because we're, I can't just sound like somebody else. So in an effort to sound like them, it'll end up being my own individual sound. But it comes from a place of like, I want to listen to what this guy did and try to like reverse engineer that sound and try to recreate it on my own. And you get something unique doing that. So it's a little bit of both, I think.
Nice. I know skill acquisition syndrome is something that a lot of creatives have to be really careful about.
Yeah.
And which is why that whole find friends thing is so important, because otherwise you're going to fall down the rabbit hole of teaching yourself 9,000 new skills, and then the creative project just somehow mysteriously never happens,
Exactly.
As well, now you mentioned the Black Phone, because I ended up seeing that twice. I'm kind of going back over it in my head, and the music in that was exceptional.
It's very weird, very different kind of soundtrack. But it's very, very good.
And it plays with audio so much as well. A recurrent thing of the phone calls.
Yes.
And how the audio for the phone calls is shot very differently to the video for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the folks in the chat, if you haven't seen the Black Phone, it is fantastic and almost unbearably horrible. And it's not gore, it's just fucking grim.
It's I was
Grave of the Fireflies grim?
The premise,
that's my standard for grim.
Yeah.
Incoming content warning for the spoilers. The premise is a kid in the mid-70s is kidnapped by a serial killer. And He is kept in a basement in this guy's house where there is a disconnected black phone. And the serial killer's previous victims communicate with him via the phone.
It's such an
Oh,
upsetting
boy.
movie
Yes.
that I bought The Mask. I was the grabber for Halloween, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Like, the mask is too upsetting looking. It's too scary. Like, I was like, I can't walk around my neighborhood wearing the pedophile serial killer mask. Like, that's not a good look for me.
No, just
yeah.
this doesn't
Yeah.
feel right on my face.
But I was such a fan of the movie. I was like, oh man, and the mask is like legitimately scary, I think. And so I was like, this would be a great Halloween costume. Regretted it as soon as I put it on my face.
You're like, why
There's
is
no
this
way.
in my house?
Why did I do this? I should get rid of this. This is bad.
Sorry, Doc, about that, but that is my standard for horrific movie, unfortunately. Scream likewise. We have a comment. This isn't so much a question. It says, I found it really interesting when Brandon was in the chat while you were playing Slay the Princess, how he'd mentioned things he was doing with the music that were having a huge emotional effect by their stealth until he pointed them out. Again, that for me, that's that sweet spot of that layered emotion where I'm experiencing the emotion that you're influencing but not directly causing.
Sure.
I have no question about this. Just wanted to say how cool it is to have it explained exactly how the shivers were applied to the spine, you know?
Well, I'm glad they liked it because I tried not to, like, I watch a lot of streams and I felt like your stream was one that I might be able to like kind of speak up in, and it wouldn't be
absolutely.
too
So happy you did.
backseaty or something. Especially because I get so excited about it, especially with all of the, I don't know how spoilery you want to get with Slay the Princess, but like
now that we've completed the whole game, I think.
Is it fair to?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have not experienced every princess, but we have completed the game.
But the my favorite thing to watch is the shifting mound. It's such a huge emotional beat for me, and working with Amelia Jones, the singer, it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was write that music, and it fits so perfectly that like I even thinking about it, like I kind of get emotional. I don't know why. It's just that's
why you like Baldur's Gate's music as much as well.
Right.
It's one of my like go-to examples about how, you know, you cannot overbeat a theme. A theme is perfect when it has the strength to go through all of those variants and those changes and those different emotions and stuff like that.
Sure. And that's why I thought when just to go on a little tangent about the shifting mound, like talking to Tony about this idea of like, they were describing, you know, the idea of a vessel and these hands kind of take her away. And I was like, man, when that happens, like something different, there needs to be a dramatic shift in the music.
Yeah.
And that's when I had the idea of like, what if we just heard like a single voice singing, and then they liked that. We kind of built from that. And it isn't just, there's a whole musical piece with it and everything, but the whole reference track was City of Tears from Hollow Knight. And I was like, oh, well, I know Amelia. Do you want me to see if she'd be interested in singing on this? And they were like, yeah, of course. Like that would be perfect. So it was really like funny how it worked out that way. I kind of touched base with her on another project I worked with, not even with her directly. We were just on the same project together. And she's been like so passionate about Slay the Princess. She loves how well it's received, and the role she got to play as basically being the musical part that, you know, kind of captures the princess, you know, in an entirety like that. So it was just awesome.
That turn in the game and in the music is incredible, and especially that last playthrough, the thing we got to with chapter 4. I understand completely why, especially for you who built it, it has such an emotional tone to it. Because the thing that really entranced me about Slay the Princess was it is a colossal game, which is actually about something incredibly simple and small and intimate. And this kind of goes back to my earlier point. It is unbelievably easy to produce music that gets in the way of that emotion. And it's very hard to produce music that allows you to see that emotion clearly and magnifies it.
Or even brings it into being in a way that feels organic and that lets the audience have the ownership of the development of that emotion in that way. I mean, that's what art is, right? It's bringing you to a different emotion, and it's putting you in different shoes or places or times or things. And sound is my favorite way that's ever done.
Sure.
And especially the kind of added resonance of that, because it's a variable narrative game, because of the lovely choice that's been made with the playlist. You have this universal experience where everyone who's playing Slay the Princess is playing the same game, but no one is playing it the same way.
Same way, yeah.
And that's incredibly fucking cool.
I would desperately.
It's such an intimate thing, you know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, yeah. It's
intimate from that ownership perspective, because it's like, this is my unique journey through it. And even if we have similar journeys or experience similar events in different orders, our journeys are different.
Yeah.
I desperately want to see some of these playlist names when you get a chance. But people are no, I'm like, okay, do I have to look at Spotify so I can build a playlist?
Right. And it's one of those things where I was worried because, you know, and I was once told by some very, very famous composers I know that you don't get, they do movies and stuff, and they were like, don't get in the way of the acting, was some of the advice they gave me years and years ago. And I was like, that's something I try to remember. And with the shifting mound and stuff, like, the music's very simple. It's not it's not complicated. It's, you know, when people ask me for the sheet music, I'm like embarrassed to share it because it's so simple. It's not like, you know, when you see a piece of music and it's like really impressive and there's like all these like 30-second notes and all this crazy stuff going on.
Yes, but we already have Hans Zimmer. We don't need Hans Zimmer. We need you.
Right. And so when I share it, I'm like, you know, it's
a melody.
Every single track on the soundtrack is a different series of 4 chords, and that's it. And it's, you know, it has the same melody. There's the major
but every
version of the
learning musician out there thanks you for that. You're like, okay, I can do this. I can do this.
And to the point where, like, there was even one of my favorite things that happened musically was with Transformation, when you fight the shifting mound, or you have a philosophical debate depending on how you look at that scene. But it's one of my favorite chord changes in that was a total accident where I was like kind of under the gun and I'm trying to get this stuff done, and I was like playing it back and I was recording over it and I played the wrong chord, but it sounded awesome. So I'm like, well, that's how that one's going to be different. That's that track now.
Well done, me.
Yeah.
Remember that art book you didn't tell us about? You can put the sheet music in there, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. No, I'm serious. I have people in the chat going, sheet music?
Yeah, I will have better looking sheet music available soon, I promise. Once I have a chance to get all that taken under, because I write like a maniac on my computer, so it's really hard to translate for actual musicians to read. But yeah, it'll be out soon enough.
I love it.
But if you need help, it's just the princess's theme is just an A chord, A major, F minor, E major, C sharp minor, and that you just arpeggiate those down and then it just resets back into A. And then for the inverse, like the scary part of the princess is just F minor, E flat, sus4, E augmented fourth, C minor. There you go. If I remembered that correctly. It's the minor version's a little bit funkier than the major one, but nice. Yeah.
All right, we've got one other question, then I'm going to ask a question. Sure. What song did you have the most fun composing for Slay the Princess, and why?
I'm going to give... I can't... It's impossible for me to give short answers, it seems. I'm sorry for talking so much.
Short answer. My moms want me to never stop you, so please, keep going.
Originally, it was Transformation. That was... you know, we kept joking, like, this is my opus, and that's what I call it. I was like, Transformation is my opus. It's like the huge, grand Final Fantasy track for when you see the true version of the shifting mound.
Right.
And that was, to me, that was the best track on the soundtrack. It was going to be the hardest hitting, my favorite piece of the game. Well, then the apotheosis happened, and that's one that a lot of people don't hear or see. It's a route from the tower that you can get where she gets even bigger. And the reference for that one was an Attack on Titan fight track.
Ooh.
And so it was basically like write an anime fight song. And that's the only And so it's kind of like
to go replay this and find the tower now because that's not a princess we've seen.
And so it's kind of like transformation in a lot of ways, and the fun fact is it's the only character track that's not the shifting mound that Amelia sings on, because it just kind of kept running with us, and I was like, it's got to be. We just kept building this track, and I was like, it'd be so sick if we got Amelia to sing on this. Like, it would be a proper anime fight song, and so she sings on it, and it's like, and by the end of it, I think it was all in agreement, like, hey, remember when we thought transformation was going to be the best song on here, but now it's just the apotheosis. So I think that's the best one for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go play and find the tower now.
Those were the most fun to write, but I think my favorite song is The Unknown Together, the Leaving the Cabin Together.
Yeah.
Just because it's really simple, soft, and sweet.
I will listen to It Was Always That Easy. Just
you've done entire days
because it's got so I'm a lawyer by my day job, and there are times where I just need a piece of music to put me in a mindset so that I can just write for 10 hours and just be left alone to do it. And I have a very curated collection of pieces of music that I do that with, because they have to have common elements to them. They have to be, they can't be vocal. They've got to have good energy so that I feel like I'm being motivated, but they can't be too upfront and too cerebral where they're going to get in the way of me thinking. And that ticks every box
really
for me
so
for
funny.
That piece of music. So I'm like that and the the map tracks from the Mass Effect video games.
Love those. Those are so good.
Oh yeah.
Right alongside that. If you ever played, is it Outer Worlds?
Outer Wilds?
No, Outer Wilds is the one with the time loops. Outer Worlds is the one in space.
Yeah.
Its main theme will do that because it's got that build and that cycle to it.
Okay.
But that's why I like that track in Famous, because it's so hard for me to find new additions to that playlist.
The one that you like is from the Damsel, and it's like the heroic ending one, right? Because I'm so bad with remembering the names. That track was I think it was one of the last pieces of music added to the game. Almost did not make it. That almost didn't happen. And I had written that track as that was supposed to be something else for the Damsel, and it was kind of like a last minute. They're like, hey, so we decided to do this like White Knight, super cheesy, you save the Damsel. And they're like, what's the cheesiest piece of music you can write? And I was like, well, I don't know if you remember this. And I sent it to them, and they're like, this is perfect. Just finish this, and we'll call it a day. And
so it was just, to the rescue.
Yeah.
I love it.
It was just this like very last minute. There was a few tracks like that where it was kind of like, hey, we decided to do this. Do you have anything? And it was, I'm really glad it made it into the game, because I really like it's the White Knightiest piece of music I've ever written, for sure.
Love it.
And I get the whole like romantic cheese of it, but I really like it.
I love it. It's my favorite solo track, though I haven't heard Apotheosis yet, so I've got to.
Apotheosis is rad.
I'm gonna have to say my opinion. Okay, we've been doing this for 1 hour and 40 minutes, but I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we will help you flog all of your stuff, and where wonderful people can
I'm
us
here
give
as
you
long
money.
as you need me. How many questions you got, I'm here for it. I have nothing planned today.
Okay, the chat's cracking their knuckles, here we go.
Good.
What are your favorite music pieces to listen to? Like when you go for inspiration, what are your comfort favorites? What are your motivational favorites? What are your touchstones when it comes to your music?
It changes so much.
Oh, I know. I mean, there's a reason I have to buy the biggest phones they make. It's because if I don't have half a terabyte of music with me, I feel naked. So loud.
Let me pull up. I'm an Apple Music guy to see what my favorite stuff is, because a lot of what I listen to is based on what I'm working on, because I try to I'm constantly researching. There's always something in the oven, as it were, so I'm always thinking about what's next.
Don't give us any NDA based spoilers or anything here.
No. Yeah, I won't give any spoilers or anything. But my go-tos normally are, I would say I'm most influenced by Trent Reznor. Not so much Nine Inch Nails, but Gone Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
So the Social Network.
Social Network is a hell of a soundtrack, and it's completely underrated.
It's very good.
Completely underrated.
And,
It's really good.
His A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is maybe my favorite or second favorite score of all time. It's like 3 hours long, I think. It might be longer. He may have written more music than the length of the movie. Like I feel like he just just kept sending Fincher stuff like, use this wherever. Other than that, Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, obviously, his musical stuff for movies is really big for me. Like There Will Be Blood. That's a huge one for me. That's like the strings in that are super inspiring. Other than that, I've been like begging for people to send me more. It's really hard for me to find video game soundtracks just because there's so many video games out now. So I'm like, any indie darlings that you know of or that you like the music to, please send it to me because I want to hear what other people are doing. I'll say my favorite video game soundtrack of the past couple of years is Little Nightmares. I don't know if you're familiar with this game.
Oh, I never.
It's so good.
Let me write that down because I think we looked at it at one point, didn't we?
We did. It's on the very long in 5 separate documents list of
Sure.
Little Nightmares.
It's a relatively short game. There's 2 of them. There's some DLC, but I was at a conference for the White Vault, and I got COVID, of course, because it was 2021 or whatever, and I was at a conference, and so I was isolating in my basement for 10 days trying to protect my family, and I just played through Little Nightmares, and the soundtrack is so good. I think his name is Tobias Lilja or Lilia. I don't know how you say his last name. It's Lilja. But again, huge inspiration for Slay the Princess and like the repeating motif because he does that in the game. Huge nod to that soundtrack on the nightmare route of Slay the Princess for what it's worth. Hopefully not such a nod that he could sue me, but there's like I was trying to pay my respects to him because it's one of the best video game soundtracks I've ever heard.
Definitely gonna put that one back on my list now for sure. I'm trying to think about.
I saw this in chat. I have not played Stray Gods.
Do you know the premise of the music?
And I know the premise. I've heard some of the music, and I'm told that it's really hard to judge the music without playing the game. But I know that the concept is very ambitious. So
yeah, I think they spent
I don't want to say anything about it
without
without playing it because I want to make sure I understand what's happening. So no comment on that one. I'm sure it's great. Austin's an incredible composer, right? So
it's a great game. We streamed it. We really enjoyed playing it.
Okay.
And it wasn't a lengthy play. I think it was 10 hours for us.
Okay.
But we're really slow. Other people can get through it faster. I would never tell you not to play Baldur's Gate 3, but if you're looking for a palate cleanser, that would be another great recommendation, I think.
Yeah, okay. I think I saw a flowchart he posted about how the narrative choices within one particular song changed how he composed it, and it had 15 separate lines and colors.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, it looked like a map of the underground.
I can't figure out how Tony and Abby keep all this in their head. Like, how on earth do you
I always send the gif of Charlie from Always Sunny with all the red strings, and like that.
I'm
that's
like,
how
conceptually, how do you keep your arms around something that size?
Yeah. The one thing I will say about Stray Gods is I don't know Austin Wintory. I've never spoken to him. I'm on a team that he's on, despite having never spoken to him. So I really hope to find myself in a best soundtrack against him at some point. I think that'd be really fun.
If it is any consolation, you and him are the 2 composers that we support.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. In our book, anything that either of you write, we get. Yeah. I've only heard wonderful things about him. He's on I'm pretty sure it's the Dark Dice is the team he's on that I'm also on. And there's some the people on that team, David Wise of Rare fame and all that kind of stuff. Like it's Hitachi Sakamoto. There's some crazy people on that team that I happen to find myself on as well.
Dark Dice, the White Vault, the Fool's Scholar. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Let's not talk about Travis and how he's in other freaking mad genius.
Yeah, he is.
Caitlin,
He's
for
one
sure.
of the most creative people I've ever met, for sure.
We could talk like for a whole nother hour about White Ball. We probably shouldn't know. Oh my gosh.
There was a news story that broke here yesterday about how a group of British scientists have discovered, and this is a direct quote, unusual coffins in the Arctic Circle.
And we all went
White Vault's new season coming soon, I'm sure.
Oh gosh.
Really roll the boat out on the marketing budget this year.
Yeah, right? Oh god.
I do keep my Webby honorary award. You can't see it from the camera view, but for the White Vault theme song, that's proudly displayed on my wall as well.
Good.
Excellent. Yeah, we're all like, that's a hard note, thanks.
No, for sure.
I'm not gonna go looking for little boxes in the Arctic.
One more reason to not go to the Arctic, right?
My Twitter feed yesterday was just full of people going, so you opened it? Find any interesting boxes?
Oh gosh.
Got any teeth?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got my polar bear teeth right over there. My box of teeth that he gave me over on the shelf.
Box of teeth. Oh god. Oh, this has been amazing, and I think we should probably bring it to a close because otherwise we're just gonna start going on all sorts of tangents.
I could talk endlessly for hours, I assure you.
I know, but then none of us would get anything done, and that's
for sure.
Probably rude. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for
Don't be surprised if we drag you back on to talk about Scarlet Hollow mode again.
Requested in the chat that we have.
You're like, okay, after the next Scarlet Hollow chat, we're gonna do breakdowns, bring diagrams, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I guess I could have chosen to focus more on Slay the Princess and save Scarlet Hollow for another time, but it all feels so closely related.
And it's all part of your work.
Exactly.
So it's all totally valid. All right.
I love talking about it.
It's great. And creative projects like these are teams. And we want to make sure that like all the people who participate and contribute to these stories get a chance to talk about it. Now I'm really thinking about whether or not we could reach out to Nicole and be like, you're the only one who enslaved the princess we haven't interviewed yet.
I was gonna say, she'd probably love that.
Yeah.
I guarantee she would love that. Yeah.
That would be really cool.
That would be great.
All right, I'll put it on the list.
Let's do it.
We'll put it on the list, right? Why not? Dream big. We'll get some even more voice actors. I love the idea.
I'm sure she would love it.
All right, so tell us about where people can find you and your work, and more importantly, how they can support you and give you money.
The best way to support me is probably Bandcamp, brandonboone.bandcamp.com. As it was stated before, I've got like a billion songs on there. I stopped doing individual episode releases for No Sleep because it just became too much of like, I felt like going to my Bandcamp page was just staring into the void. So now I'm just doing like at the end of a season, I'll do like a best of. And so there's like a season 19 best of, and it's got 150 tracks that I chopped down from 500. And then of course you've got all of the Scarlet Hollow stuff there, the Slay the Princess, all of my other albums. There's also, I should note, if you do look me up on there or Spotify or whatever, there is an extended demo from Slay the Princess soundtrack from the demo from earlier this year that does have 2 pieces of music that are no longer in the game.
Oh, nice.
So if you're interested in a little bit of a little bonus content there,
the chat's like, imagine having so much work you could just do a best of.
It took a long time to cut it down to 150 because it's really hard to know what's good or
what's
not based on
land,
my own and it's like, is it different enough to make the cut? I just try to keep it diverse and go about it that way. So yeah, I'm on Spotify and all that stuff. Wondrous Sound on Twitter, Brandon Boone Music on Instagram. There's only 2 other Brandon Boones, and they don't look anything like me, so you can find me. One's actually a really good bass player out of I think Atlanta, and then I don't know much about the other Brandon Boone, but there's a few of us. But yeah,
it's always good to have a mysterious doppelganger or two floating around out that.
I'm the bearded one.
Exactly. Thank you so much for doing this. This has really been a great chat.
This has been a blast.
Really appreciate it.
It's been a ton of fun.
So, chat, we're gonna just take a little quick break, one more last hurrah for capitalism, and say goodnight to Brennan, and then we will be back to do our wrap-up shenanigans. So we will be right back. Which one is the button that I push? It's that one.